Let's talk about breakthrough communication success. Across the country, I observe teams that engage in meetings, but they simply ignore the great big pink elephant in the room because nobody knows how to address the problem. And this is precisely what causes teams to plateau and growth to be stymied. Okay? Like the characters in a horror movie, emotions that get buried alive will reappear, usually at the worst possible moment, and they wreak havoc. So teams that learn how to trust and hold each other accountable by embracing constructive and creative conflict will be rewarded with this breakthrough communication success. This is a skill that can and must be learned because bottom line, systems, protocols, and technology alone are not going to create success. People do. Okay? Open, honest communication is key to success, and it's a skill we must develop. We don't want to hide our emotions because we don't do that really well. We want to understand and challenge them. Okay? This process is really about developing your emotional intelligence, or your EQ. Most of us are familiar with IQ, which measures how well you can learn, and that doesn't change. But EQ is relatively new, and the research started back in the 1980s. These studies show us that 70% of the time, it's the person with the higher EQ that is most successful, not the person with the higher IQ. This is great news because unlike IQ, EQ can be developed. So it really levels the playing field for all of us, giving us an opportunity to be very successful communicators. However, I want you to recognize that only 1 in 3 of us is aware of our emotions as we experience them. So take a quick moment here and turn and look at the person on your right, and then look at the person on your left, and decide of the 3 of you, which is the one that's most emotionally aware. And I'll bet if you're like most people, you said, well, I am. But if you've ever had one of those, V8 moments, those woulda, coulda, shoulda moments, you've experienced an emotional disconnect or a hijack. You see, each of us brings our past experience with us to each new encounter. So there's an event, and then there's the story we tell ourselves about the event. Okay? When we recognize this, and we can change our pattern so that with each new experience we can see it as a new opportunity, it clears the path for greater understanding and collaboration. Here's a great example of a practice that I work with and exactly how this played out. It was a Thursday morning and I got a call from a doctor who said, Jenny, on Tuesday I was working with Liz. You know Liz, she's the best assistant I've ever had. We were doing a root canal procedure, and I've got to tell you, smooth as silk. Everything was perfect. I mean, we actually finished on time. It was wonderful, and I thought, oh, thank God we finally have the setup issues all settled. This is wonderful. Well, here it is only 2 days later. Root canal procedure, Liz is assisting me, and everything went wrong. I mean, unbelievable. She had to jump out of that chair 3 or 4 times to get things that were missing. And I've got hygienists in the hallway who are now their patients are being held up. It was a mess, a complete mess, but I didn't let her know that I was upset. I followed your advice. I'm back here calling you now to see what I can do about it. Now, team members, how many of you think Liz was unaware that the doctor was upset? Yeah, exactly. We all know, don't we? There are those knowing sighs or glances or the rolling of the eyes, okay? We all know. Okay, what I said to this doctor was, I want you to think for just a minute. What do you think the chances are that Liz was just as upset about this as you were? And he took a deep breath and said, oh my goodness, I never thought about it that way. You're absolutely right. See, he didn't have time at that point to go fix all of it, but I said, I want you to find Liz, and I simply want you to say to her, Liz, I'll bet you're just as upset as I am. How about we take some time later today, maybe over lunch, and we talk about how we can fix this once and for all. He will turn Liz's day around 180 degrees with that, and it's going to make a big difference in the practice as well. See, at times, each of us can experience this kind of nearsightedness, okay? In this example, we picked on the doctor, but we've all probably been guilty of that kind of nearsightedness, haven't we? We'll talk more about that next week. In the meantime, go ahead, be the Joneses, lead on purpose.